Morning, Hot Wheels fans. Welcome to my Hot Wheels Redlines collection. Well, I finished my 1972 cars and did the last video yesterday. So today I'm going to start 1973 cars. In 1973, there was a total of 34 cars, and some of them, as collectors know, they end up being very expensive in 1973. Now, there were a few things that happened that kind of caused issues with Mattel. So in 72, they were having trouble selling the cars, and our economy was kind of on the brink of collapse back then, and we were coming into an oil embargo. So in 73, we officially had the oil embargo. So they ended up getting rid of the Spectraflame paint. Now, part of the reason they got rid of it, there were several reasons, but first you had the cost, because they had to polish the bodies in order to shoot Spectraflame paint and make it look right. They couldn't just cast the car and then shoot paint on it. They actually took the time to polish it so that the paint would look right. Give it that, I don't know, that deep look, I guess would be the way to word it. And at the same time, it was discovered that in the Spectraflame paint, there was lead. And the government had started cracking down on lead being in paint. So Mattel had to come up with an idea in order to be able to paint their cars and still not violate the lead. I don't want to call it an act, but there was a law that says that they couldn't put lead on stuff that they sold to kids. So that in and of itself caused a problem within Mattel as far as finances go. So they had to come up with something else. So they got to thinking, and they came up with enamel paint, basically what you would paint a farm tractor with, or some houses, I guess, back then probably had some enamel paints. With that being said, they ended up releasing, like I said earlier, the 34 cars, but of those 34, only 3 of them were new in design. So all the other cars that were released that year were cars that had already been done. So you had the, let me think here for a second. You had the Superfine Turbine, I think the double header, and then the Sweet 16. So those would have been the 3 cars, if I recollect right, that they had made in 73. The rest of the cars were basically repaints and a few changes here and there. They also made a change in the wheels. They were trying to save money on the wheel design. So as a lot of people might know or might not know, when Hot Wheels started doing their wheels back in the day, they made the bearing, and then you had the back of the wheel, the hub, whatever you want to call it, and then the Redline cap snapped on there. So in 73, they started messing around with basically piano wire, and they were trying to make a wheel that could be just put on without doing caps. So they kept the center of the wheels open and then crimped piano wire, and were able to install that, but they were still kind of experimenting with it. So in 73, you'll notice a lot of the cars have a hole, what they call a hole-through wheel on the fronts, and the backs are capped. And I'll do a video down the road kind of explaining a little bit more of that, because I think more people, if they're collecting Redlines especially, kind of need to be aware of the changes that happened over that time period. And with that being said, This here is an Alive 55. It's in light blue. So you have the hole through tires. So you can see right here that this guy has a hole in here instead of the capped wheel. So you had this backing plate, and then you had the wheel that snapped on. And I don't know if this one really has the bearing or not, but they were trying to save money. But anyways, as most of our cars today, they're all hole through. They quit doing the caps basically in 74. But anyways, so this is a really pretty car. The one thing that they did also on these cars, when they shot them with the enamel paint, so you had like a primer, then you had the paint, and they didn't take the time and paint the headlights, the grille anymore, or the tail lights. So basically, you just had the wheels, and then you had the paint shot on there. I think on these, I only have this one Alive 55, but I think there might have been a couple interiors. You had the dark, and then I believe kind of like a off-white. These still had the lift hoods to expose the motor in 73. I mean, I don't know. This thing is really pretty. It's got a few nicks here and there, but as I go through my 73s, it'll kind of make sense why I kind of came to the decision I did as far as being okay with chips and stuff. Because the price of these cars, it's insane. But anyways, I also believe, I don't know if I have another one laying around here. I'm not going to dig one out, but I think they had the pop rivets in the front and the back. And then in 73, I think they did this hook piece. But yeah, I don't see one right offhand. Anyways, I could be wrong, but I'm not 100% sure. It seems like that's when they put that hook in there. So they saved money on a pop rivet. And with that, everybody, sorry it was such a long video. There's kind of a lot to talk about because a lot of things happened in 1973. So the oil embargo really hurt the American economy. I mean, it crashed it. You couldn't buy gasoline, heat and oil, none of that stuff. So anyways, that's kind of off the topic, but that's what led to some of their money savings ideas. And with that, I hope everybody's having a great day, and I will see you on my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.